Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Taking Care With. Today, I have Steph Barron Hall, the woman behind 9 Types Co. with me, and I'm really excited for her to share her tips. If you're new, Taking Care With is where I get to sit down with some really cool people. They take our Take Care assessment. That's our 75 question assessment. And they talk about the area that they scored highest in, give us some of their tips and tricks, and also you get to know some pretty awesome people. So Steph, thank you for being here.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
I am excited to get into this, but first, I want people to know who you are. I feel like because of the account that you run, people have probably run into your work, even if they haven't realized it. I see stuff shared all the time, and I'm not even on Instagram that often anymore. So tell us a little bit about 9 Types Co. and how you came to that work.
Yeah, it's just so interesting. It's almost accidental. I know a lot of us, when we have these big projects, sometimes like the stars just align. So I got interested in the Enneagram a number of years ago, but I've always been fascinated with human personality. So I studied psychology in college because I was so interested in personality and things like that. And after college, I was using a different motivation-based personality assessment, and a few people in my life said, "Hey, you need to check out the Enneagram," and I was like, no, at first, but then I did, and I just dove headlong into this thing, which is just so fascinating to have this tool, which is oriented around 9 core archetypes, or 9 core motivations, and then to be able to see those like your core motivation, like coming up in your life. When I first learned my Enneagram type, I was like, ooh. Well, at first I was like, ooh, I won. And then I was like, oh, wait, I don't like this.
Me too. We have the same
Yes,
type.
because you say you see the achiever pop up on that little free test, online, which is not how I recommend people learn their type anymore. But you see that pop up and they're like, oh, I won. And then you're like, oh, these things, people can see these things about me. So that was hard, but I really just got interested. Like I got curious about it. And that's one thing that I love about the Enneagram too, that it kind of invites that curiosity. So after I had a previous side hustle and after that kind of came to a close, I was looking for something new. And so I decided to create these like coffee mugs for each of the Enneagram types. So I hired a designer. We got these icons made and created these coffee mugs. And so that's actually how 9 Types Co. started. It started as a little shop. I had an Instagram account where I would share the coffee mugs, and um, the goal was really to remake our investment. So we did that our first Christmas. But then I didn't post about anything on Instagram between like Christmases essentially for a couple of years. But in the meantime, I was still like learning. I was still growing, still getting curious about it. And people started asking me and inviting me to come speak to their groups or to come speak to their teams. And that was like a really interesting and fascinating experience. And then people started asking me, well, where'd you get your certification? And so I was like, oh, okay, maybe I should get that. So things kind of unfolded from there. I got a quick online certification. I ended up getting a master's degree in organizational communication and leadership. And now the main thrust of my business is that I actually work with teams and organizations. And so I do that. And then starting in 2019, my account 9 Types Co. just started growing because I really started posting about the deep content of the Enneagram, not just about like the coffee mugs, right? And so since then it's just grown, and it's been a really cool journey just to see how much I've learned about myself and changed, and the opportunities that have been presented to me just through, kind of following that next right thing for me.
I love that. And it's cool. Like everything really did just unfold. You like followed a little piece and then it took you someplace else, in a place that I'm guessing this isn't where you necessarily expected. So
no, definitely not.
That's pretty awesome. And I didn't mention this at the top, but the way that we got connected was through a mutual friend who is also an Enneagram coach. And I forget what it was, but you posted something. So I am an Enneagram type 3. You're also an Enneagram type 3. And for some reason, like the things that you write about the threes always resonate with me a little bit deeper. And my hypothesis is that like you understand that. But I'm always curious talking to other threes. I've got like my little circle of threes who will post something or ask each other questions because we get each other. And I often have people surprised that I do the work that I do because I'm an Enneagram type 3, which if you're not familiar with this framework, it's a lot about achievement and often working really hard and looking really polished as you're working really hard, and not necessarily the greatest at rest. So for me, running this whole business feels like a personal development journey as I strive to practice the things that I preach. But I was really curious to see what your take care results were. And you scored highest in the embodiment subdimension that falls under the overarching physical dimension. And for those who aren't sure what embodiment means, we talk about it as this connection to your physical body. It seems obvious, but so often we're not like, we are existing in our body, but we're not really in our body. We're in the future, we're in the past, we're ignoring that this thing that carries us around actually exists. And so you scored really high in that dimension. And I'm just wondering, did that surprise you? Was that expected for you? And then we'll get into some tips that you might have.
Yeah. Let's see. It doesn't necessarily surprise me. But I was surprised actually how low all of my scores were overall, aside from this one. But I also think that there was a sense in which I was like, I'm just going to be brutally honest, like, and it's a really great guide. I really enjoyed the way that the results helped me to become more aware of like what I need to look more at and how interconnected they all are too. So, but the embodiment thing I think does make sense to me because a lot of it is like I grew up, playing sports a lot. And so I think I was always really aware of that. And then just with working from home, not only for the last year, but I actually started working from home primarily July 2019.
Okay.
So there's something about like being at home where there is like a certain level of comfort and like kind of like being a little bit more in touch with yourself and your body, because as a 3, I think if I'm out in the world or I'm in an office, I'm like sitting up straight and I'm, doing all these different things. And then being at home, there's a lot more comfort there. And so allowing myself to make more adjustments, allowing myself to wear whatever's most comfortable, right? And just being a lot more aware of how my body is feeling for the day and kind of understanding what makes me feel good and what doesn't. So I think that makes a lot of sense to me.
That's so interesting because I wouldn't have thought that. I started working from home a little bit after you. And now I have like this whole other reflection that I need to have because I didn't even think about my 3ness and how feeling like I need to be on and present a certain way would affect like how I showed up at work.
Yeah.
My mind is literally blown right now.
I think it kind of takes you outside the moment in a sense. But I'm not somebody who can like sit here and ignore how I'm actually feeling, like physically. Like definitely like I still have that 3 characteristic of like, or the tendency to table my emotional experiences. But I think in terms of like the physical experiences of my body, I'm a lot more in tune with it, and it's actually funny. I'm noticing here too, like on the body awareness, I scored pretty low, and actually I think it's or body acceptance, sorry. And I think that's actually connected to the embodiment for me, because the things that I really want to change about my body are like, I want new knees. Like my knees hurt all the time, right? And so I think that the awareness of different like discomforts um probably does contribute to the embodiment experience too.
That's really interesting. And I love how you brought up that it is this interconnectedness. Like I mean, I'm biased, but I like having a framework where I can see there are all these different parts of me that need different levels of care,
Mhm.
but I'm not sliced up into 15 different pieces. Like
Yeah.
all of these connect. So that's even cool to see like, oh, I might be a little bit less accepting of my knees because I'm so connected to the conversation when they're like, I don't know how your knees talk to you. My knees talk to me sometimes when it gets cold, or I grew up dancing and that kind of messed up my hips and my knees. So certain exercises, they're like, maybe not right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just interesting trying to find new ways to adjust and experience things. Like for a while I was like, "Oh, I like can't get out of my car because I can't like I'm 30 years old, I shouldn't be this way yet." Right? And so then being like, "Okay, what are the things that I need to do, to support my body and as I continue to be alive, like I'm going to need it." So, like how can I support myself well? Um
That's a
so yeah,
great
that is really
question.
interesting. Yeah.
Has it always been natural for you to ask that question? Like, has it just been even from your athlete days when you were
Mm.
younger to be like, how can I support myself well? Or when did that question start to emerge for you?
Yeah, I think that it has. I do think part of that is just like my upbringing. My mom is a physical therapist. And so that was always like physical health was always an emphasis. Not to say I wouldn't say that it was always about like you can eat certain things and you can't eat certain things, nothing like that. More so just like the priority of staying active
Mm.
throughout your life. And so, and it's always been something I enjoyed. So I've always enjoyed being really active. Like that's how my body feels best. And so I think some of that awareness does come down to that. Um, but I also think that learning that I am an Enneagram 3 has also meant learning to not just like use my body, right? To not just be like, oh, this is just a tool for me to accomplish my goals, but instead to be a little bit more aware of what feels good. Um, like for a long time, I did yoga with Adrienne, and she always says, find what feels good. And I
Yeah.
think that that really helps me connect with that idea that a good workout doesn't have to be brutal. Um, and so the ability to like breathe into things or the ability to like balance, all of these things are things that I feel like yoga has been such a gift for me to slow myself down and also to like really tune in and feel into my body and feel what feels right, what doesn't feel right, and to adjust. So
Mm.
I think that probably is all kind of interconnected.
Yeah. And I love yoga with Adrienne. I feel like for so many
Yeah.
people, like no matter what level you're at with yoga, there's just something about the way that she approaches it that for me has been really restorative too. I love
Mhm.
a yoga with Adrienne video.
Me
Well,
too.
I could sit here and chat with you all day. You already literally blew my mind about that whole work and Enneagram thing, 3 thing. So I'm going to be probably thinking about that for the next couple of weeks. But if people want to see more of you, learn more about the Enneagram, where can they connect with you?
Yeah. I would love to see them on my page, which is at Nine Types Co. It's all spelled out, Nine Types Co. Or my website. I have some things like book lists and gift guides and things like that that people can just resources for people to learn more about themselves and to learn more about the Enneagram. So that's ninetypes.co. And then I also have a podcast, which is called Ask an Enneagram Coach. And sometimes I answer questions solo, or sometimes I bring on my friends and we answer Enneagram questions together. So it's been really fun.
That's perfect. So I will link all of those in the show notes. And especially if you're someone who is listening to this and is new to the Enneagram, definitely recommend her podcast, and maybe you can submit a question too and get your question answered. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Steph, thank you so much for being on the show, and thanks for taking care with me.
Thanks. I'm so happy to be here with you.